All right, one of the things we like to think about here in our training is how does one movement make us better at another movement? We call that skill transfer. Nothing we do should exist in a vacuum in that it doesn't help us improve the other things that we're trying to do to make us better athletes. So one of the things that transfers to a lot of different things, I think, is the burpee. So typically people think about the burpee as just a thing that sucks to do. It's really hard, you get your heart rate up, you get breathing really, really hard, and they're just kind of gross. So the typical CrossFit style burpee is going to be laying to the ground, chest all the way to the floor, coming back up, jumping and clapping overhead. That's pretty much it. And if you're thinking about like just getting your heart rate up and doing something to get you sweaty and like to work really hard, it will do that. It fits the bill. But there's some other things we can do, some variations on ways that we can approach that to kind of mix that up a little bit. So one of the things you can do is on that way down, turn that into a strict push-up instead of just kind of flopping on the ground, and then turn it into like a plyometric explosive push-up on the way up. And then rather than, like on that first rep I did, I used my hips to pop myself up. Rather than doing that, try to create as much energy on the way up from just your arms, building more explosive pressing power from the burpee rather than it just getting your heart rate up. It'll still get your heart rate up, but from this bottom position, push up, and trying not to like push off of your hips on the floor, but try to turn that into more of an explosive push. That's one variation that would then transfer to maybe a better bench press, better push-ups, that sort of stuff. The other thing we can think of is going back to that initial version of the burpee I did, using my hips, thinking about how does this transfer to my Olympic lifts. So the Olympic lifts require explosive hips. Like it's all about those hips. So here's a way I can use those hips going from a somewhat like some extension here to a quick flexion and doing it quickly and landing in an athletic position. Like I'm ready to change directions if I'm out on, say, a soccer field or whatever, wanting to do something where I'm changing directions quickly. I'm ready. But it's the same pattern. So we can reinforce the way that we move in our Olympic lifts by reinforcing it in our burpee. So rather than just getting up however we want, if we can think about it and make sure that this is something that is going to transfer to another movement, we'll get better at those other movements. So one of the things that's going to help us to be able to do that on a regular burpee is when we get to the bottom and we get to that full extension, to squeeze our butt. One that's going to keep our back in a little bit better position so your back doesn't get all lit up doing a bunch of burpees. But at the top of like triple extension in a clean or in a snatch, like your hips are pushed forward and your butt is squeezed. So we want to be able to train that feeling, those muscles and that feeling as many times as we can so that it becomes natural. And then immediately from this position in our lifts, we get underneath it for a snatch so we get back to that kind of flexed position of the hip. So down at the bottom, here's my triple extension. Quickly back into that flex position, like I'm getting under a load for a snatch or a clean. So those are two different ways, either explosive pressing power or kind of helping skill transfer for your Olympic lifts that you can use the burpee for in maybe a way you haven't thought about it before.